To begin this next chapter, we must go back some ways. Jon Snow has had a turbulent time as part of the Nightswatch, having continued run-ins with his fellow brothers, as well as being targeted by Sir Alliser Thorne in a vindictive and almost deadly way, and lastly coming to terms with the loss of his family, unable to go and aid his brother in his war. However, one day Jon would receive two letters from Robb, one describing the war, as well as his crowning as King of the North. Jon wished his brother well, but after his uncle had gone missing, Jon chose to stay and take his vows. Upon taking his vows, Jon would move beyond the wall with Jeor Mormont and his fellow brothers and clash with wildlings, and eventually he would serve under Qhorin Halfhand. Eventually, with Qhorin, he would be captured by the wildlings, and there he would be forced to kill his ally and gain the trust of Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall. Here, Jon would meet and fall in love with the wildling Ygritte, and learn much of Mance's plans, including the Horn of Winter and the army of 100,000. Jon would be given a chance to make it back to his brothers at Castle Black when he is sent south of the wall with a party of wildlings to help attack the castle. Refusing to kill an innocent old man, Jon would turn on his wildling captors. 3 times he would be shot with arrows by his love, Ygritte, as he rode away. Jon would barely survive the arrows, with Ygritte herself believing she had killed him, as he slumped on his horse and his body hanged. Yet Jon Snow would still draw breath long enough for the horse to make its way to Castle Black. There, Jon would be given time to heal, and afterwards inform the Nightswatch of Mance Rayder and his army. In his time of healing, Jon would get word of Lord Commander Mormont's death and the mutiny at Craster's Keep by Sam Tarly. This made Thorne active commander of the castle and by proxy the Watch. Sam would then inform Jon of Stannis' defeat at the Blackwater, including the news of Robb Stark's announcement with child. Finally, after a week of healing, Jon would be put on trial. While many respected Jon, Alliser Thorne and Janos Slynt would railroad Jon's questioning into a mock trial, arresting him for killing the Halfhand, deserting the Watch, and sleeping with a wildling. These charges would carry great weight to them, as they were all true and Jon admitted to them while attempting to give context and clarity. Yet Thorne and his supporters would not listen, and instead come to the conclusion then and there. Jon would be stripped from the Watch, no longer a member of their brotherhood. He would then be placed in a cell to await execution, in the words of Thorne. The bastard of a traitor, the brother of a traitor, will die a traitor. Before being taken, Jon would give word of advice to Thorne. Send ravens. No matter what comes of him, they will still need help to fight off Mance's army. Luckily for Jon, his execution would have to wait. Mance and his army would arrive. The king beyond the wall would light a fire to announce his arrival. The fire itself would be 2 miles wide and 1 mile deep, a signal to let Westeros know that he had come. War. 3 times Mance launched an attack upon the wall, sending men to climb and others to open the gate. 3 times the defenders repelled the wildling host, shooting them with arrows and large bolts from their ballistae. But soon, with night falling, the 4th wave came. This time the defenders of Castle Black were surprised by the sudden attack from behind. The host Jon had escaped from had come with reinforcements and laid an assault on Castle Black. The fighting below is ferocious. So much so, Alliser Thorne is called down to take command of the battle, leaving Janos in charge of the wall's defenses. Yet this would nearly cost the defenders everything due to his fear of the wildlings and his incompetence in the heat of battle. Edison Tollett would then take charge in his absence of Janos and begin giving commands. Down below, Sam Tarly would watch as his fellow brothers would be killed. This includes his friend Pip and a young lad named Ollie. Fearing for the safety of the girl he loved, Sam would find Gilly on her and hide her away in the food storage room. Upon leaving her there, Sam would take notice of Thorne being wounded in the leg and being carried away to safety. Seeing no other chance of survival, Sam would go to the holding cells and unlock Jon Snow, giving him his sword. After being given his weapon, Jon would come face to face with the shocking sight of former watchman Carl Tanner, the man who spearheaded the mutiny against Lord Commander Mormont. With him were 2 wildlings and Rast. Jon would tell Sam to go unlock Ghost while he fought off the others. Rast would be able to make his way past Jon and go after Sam in hopes to stop him. Jon would kill the wildlings, and after a heated duel and being cut numerous times, Jon would be able to kill Carl Tanner, avenging Jeor Mormont. However, this revelation still angered and worried Jon. The mutineers were helping Mance Rayder. Exiting the holding cells, Jon noticed the fires and battle still raging. He would kill a few more wildlings, saving a few of his former brothers, including Gren, slaying a thin chieftain in the process. As for Sam, as he opened the cage for Ghost, he is tackled by Rast, who had finally caught up to him, only for the mutineer to be quickly mauled by Ghost. By this point, Mance sends for his giants to open the gate at the base of the wall. Seeing the great threat, Gren volunteered with a number of brothers to hold the gate. They were not going to make it through tonight. By now, the battle in the castle had turned in favor for the Watch, with most of the wildlings being killed in the fight. Jon, stopping to catch his breath, notices Janos Slynt running off to hide from the battle. The disgust on his face doesn't last long, though. Jon turns to see Ygritte, with her bow trained on him. Jon only smiles as he gazes at her, though. Her face shows her conflict, as she's angry by his betrayal, yet still sees the man that she loves standing before her. Jon ignores her threat and walks up to her, embracing her in a hug. This startles her, and in a moment of confusion and weakness drops her bow and hugs him back. Jon simply tells her that he missed her and to not fight, as he has Sam and Edison take her to the cells. Jon then walks over and knocks out a tired Tormund, allowing his brothers to take him as a prisoner as well. As morning came, Jon fully was taking command, ordering the defenders to restock the defenses on top of the wall, as well as prepare to seal the gate permanently. Looking over, he sees two brothers carrying the broken yet alive body of Gren out of the tunnel. Jon had lost many friends in the fight, and now prepared for the next coming assault. Stepping out from the gate, Jon prepared to make a great sacrifice for his brothers, as he went to speak with Mance, either convince him to turn back and sue for peace, or kill him if he doesn't. Yet that would not come, as war horns would blow. On two separate flanks in the east, 1,000 armored cavalry begin smashing through the wildling encampment. Their banners are that of the burning stag. Jon realizes what is happening. Stannis Baratheon had come. Swiftly routing the army, Mance surrendered, not wanting his people to be killed in panic. Stannis meets with Jon and takes Mance prisoner. Little good would still come from this relief for Jon. With the battle over, Thorin would arrest Jon Snow once more, this time including other members such as Sam, Edison, and the greatly wounded Gren. Sam would argue that Maester Aemon would not allow this, but Thorin would explain that Aemon passed during the night. Mock trials would be put on the captive brothers, and each would be found guilty of treason for releasing Jon, taking command from fellow brothers, and sparing wildlings in the midst of battle. All of them, including the wildlings, would be sentenced to death by hanging the next day, while Mance Rayder would be killed that night in a death by fire. Before the time of execution, Stannis would meet Jon in his cell, telling him of the Red Wedding and the fact that the Boltons now have claimed the North. Stannis would then ask Jon that if given the chance, would he swear loyalty to him and join him in avenging the North. Jon said he would, but since they were all about to die, it meant little. Stannis would only smile and tell him that he would take care of that. Jon would then tell Stannis that he'd only go if the others came with him. Stannis, questioning this, would ask if the wildlings would follow him. Jon tells him no, but says they might follow Tormund. Stannis would then leave the cells congratulating Tormund on his new command as leader of the wildlings. The following morning, as the sunrise crept over the horizon, Thorin is shocked to see his prisoners being loaded into a carriage. Past the burnt pyre, Mance was placed on. Thorin would threaten them in a fit of anger, and this would cause Stannis to draw his blade as well as his men, who at this point, with just a token force, still tripled the number of Nightswatch men present. Thorin would back off, but Janos would make an insulting comment on Jon and Ygritte, mentioning his brother, before snarking a comment back at Stannis. Stannis would then have his men grab Janos and force him to kneel before giving Jon his sword. The man who gives the sentence should swing the sword. Jon then beheads Janos there in front of everyone. Stannis then declares that he's taking the prisoners south to face justice for treason and now the murder of Janos Slynt. Any attack on him is an attack on the crown and will face the king's justice by fire. Stannis then sallied out with his host, regrouping with his army and family. Stannis would send Tormund, Jon, and Ygritte with Davos to bring whatever wildlings would follow to sail south of the wall from Hardhome to White Harbor, where they would meet back with him and his army. Stannis' plan was then to march on the Dreadfort and take the Bolton's castle and raze it to the ground before moving on to Winterfell. Jon felt odd. He had lost so many brothers in the battle. He had lost his mentor in Gior. As far as he knew, his brothers of Bran, Rickon, and now Robb were probably all dead. He had a heavy heart with these feelings, yet when he would look back at Ygritte, he would feel his heart warm up. There she sat next to him in a similar situation and life experience as Jon. She looked back at him, giving him an assuring smile. She may have not fully forgiven Jon for betraying the wildlings, but he was here now doing what he can to save them and get them south of the wall, having also saved her from death by Thorn as well. Whatever it is she thought of him, it was overruled by the love she had for him. Jon sat back looking at the hilt of his sword. remembering the words Robb spoke to him. Next time I see you, you'll be all dressed in black. And there we have it, our part 2 of my Robb Stark fanfic. It's basically turning into a Robb Stark Jon Snow fanfic at this point, as I'm starting to converge their storylines. Of course, you gotta admit, Stannis the Manus is always going to be a GOAT amongst other characters as well, so starting to bring those three together is a real nice story idea I have. And so yeah, as you guys probably noticed, the real big changes of this part is, one, with Ollie dying much sooner in the Battle of Castle Black, I do believe there is a high chance that Ygritte would live, because Jon wouldn't fight her, and by that point the battle was already winding down. It really was just Ollie miraculously surviving and no one attacking him that he was able to kill Ygritte, at least in the show. Can't quite remember the exact moments of the book, who exactly killed her. And so, with that happening, Ygritte would survive, and then, of course, Tormund survives. And I also like the idea of, it doesn't make sense that if Thorne and his men and, like, his supporters are trying to arrest Jon Snow, yes, he gets saved by Aemon, but I do believe first chance they get and moment of power, they would immediately strip him of his, like connection to the Nightswatch. They wouldn't allow him to be one of theirs anymore. And so, unfortunately, for story purposes, since it's Maester Aemon that stops that, Aemon's got to go. And thus, I use the stress of the actual battle as enough to make him pass with his frail heart. R.I.P. Maester Aemon, gone just a little bit sooner, but you served the story well by doing so. And yeah, so that leads to similar ideas of what eventually happens, at least in the show, going into season 5 with Hardhome, but now under new context. And that will also help lead into the coming Battle of Ice with Stannis and the Boltons, as well as my plot points of Robb Stark coming back to take the North. And yeah, can't wait for the next one. If you guys like this storyline or like the video, please leave a like, subscribe if you want to follow for more. And yeah, that's another episode of the Writer's Cantina. I'm your host, JD. See you later.